Hey, Tiger fans, welcome in to this Thursday afternoon edition, Thursday, June 25th, 2026 edition of the Babin on the Bayou show. I'm your host, as always, Justin Babin Jr. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Got a lot to cover on the show today, mainly a very LSU football heavy show. I'm really going to talk mostly today about all things LSU football, few stories, and a few topics that we want to discuss. Again, I thank you guys as always for tuning into the show. Before we do anything, I want to tell you like the video on YouTube, like the video on X, share the video with your friends, tell a friend about the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel on YouTube if you're not subscribed already. Again, I thank you guys as always for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Before we get into everything we got to cover on the show today, I want to tell you about our wonderful daily sponsors. First, the team over at Shield Heating and Cooling. Shield Heating and Cooling, 22546 Bayou, 22546 Bayou, BAYOU. That is the number for your free AC system clean and check for every AC system in your home, courtesy of our friends and the wonderful team over at Shield Heating and Cooling. Plus, our great friends also over at NOLA Plumbing and Construction. NOLA Plumbing and Construction, great team, great people. They deliver high quality work. They're trustworthy, dependable, reliable. So, if you're in the Baton Rouge area or the surrounding Baton Rouge area and you have any plumbing needs at all, give our friends over at NOLA Plumbing and Construction a call today. 225-512-2900, 225-512-2900 for our friends over at NOLA Plumbing and Construction. Greatly appreciate them, along with Shield Heating and Cooling, for being daily sponsors of the Babin on the Bayou show. All right. Thank you, folks, as always, for tuning in. Let's go ahead and get into everything we got lined up for you on the show today. Really wanted to talk a little bit more about LSU football and recruiting and this 2027 class. We talked on Tuesday about the fact that this past weekend was the last official visit weekend of the offseason. We have now hit the NCAA recruiting dead period, which basically means there will be no more official visits for the rest of the offseason. It's the recruiting dead period now. So we're officially in the thick of the offseason. Like, we're waiting for two and a half months from now for the start of fall camp in August. And then shortly after that, the start of the season, LSU taking on Clemson in Death Valley on September 5th. That's what we're all waiting for. But before we talk about that, and we're going to talk about that on the months and months to come leading up to the season, I wanted to talk a little bit more about LSU football on the recruiting front. Obviously, LSU has done an incredible job, Lane Kiffin and his staff, in the month of June. At the start of this month, you had only around 4 commitments in this 2027 class. Well, now you have 14. You've gained 10 commitments in the past 3 to 3.5 weeks, and that includes 2 top 10 edge rushers in the country, 2 top 10 running backs in the country, a couple of wide receivers, a couple of offensive linemen as well. Like, you've really loaded up and did a great job on the recruiting trail over the last 3.5 weeks and over this month of June. Now you've hit this recruiting dead period, but you're still in the running and you're still really going to try to do everything you can to get some big time commitments, some big time prospects nationally in this 2027 high school class to flip their commitments from Power 4 universities to LSU. And the one that we've been talking about a lot, the one that everybody has been talking about a lot, is Easton Royal. Easton Royal is the number one best wide receiver in the country in this 2027 high school class. He might just be the best overall athlete, the best pure athlete in the country in this class as well. Not only is he the number one rated wide receiver in this class, not only might he be the best athlete in this class, pure athlete in this class, but he's also from the state. He's also from Louisiana. He plays high school football in New Orleans for Brother Martin. And LSU has a chance to make a really big statement. LSU has the chance to make a really big statement, really, in Lane Kiffin's first full year that he gets to go out and go after this 2027 recruiting class and laying out his plan for his first full year and his first full recruiting class for this 2027 cycle. And he's already done a great job over the month of June. But something we talked about a lot on this show is if you're going to do well at LSU, if you're going to be a great coach at LSU, you have to embrace the culture and you have to embrace the fact that there is an unbelievable amount of high school football talent in this state, in the state of Louisiana. And a phrase we've mentioned before that we hear a lot is the best in the boot, stay in the boot. The best in the boot, stay in the boot. And that includes commitments that you've already got from the number one tight end in the country in Ahmad Hudson, a top 10 running back in the country in Trey Martin, a four-star athlete, wide receiver Braylon Calais. You've already landed, and also let me not forget about four-star quarterback from Evangel Pate Houston. Definitely don't forget about him because he's your quarterback for the future, really, when you look at it. But you've already done great so far at recruiting the state of Louisiana for this 2027 recruiting cycle. But make no mistake, the best player and the best prospect in the state of Louisiana is Easton Royal. It is Easton Royal. And not only is he the best in the state, he might just be the best in America. That's how great Easton Royal is. That's how good of a player he is. If you get him, he is an instant first-year, instant impact player from day one when he steps on the campus. That's how good Easton Royal is. Now, you have a chance to make a statement. You have a chance to put the state of Louisiana on lock and to say, in my first full year, my first full recruiting class that I get as the head coach at LSU, we're going to lock down this state. We're going to lock down this state. We're going to make that statement. You already got Ahmad Hudson and Braylon Calais and Trey Martin. But the biggest fish of all, the biggest prospect of all is Easton Royal. Now, he's currently committed to Texas, and we've talked about that a lot. His commitment to Texas, he's been committed to Texas since November of 2025. He obviously has a good relationship with the staff, Steve Sarkisian and company down in Austin. Easton took a trip to LSU, took his official visit to LSU, to Baton Rouge a few weeks ago, earlier in this month, in the month of June. The last official visit weekend before the recruiting dead period began, which was this past weekend, Easton was at Texas. He was in Austin taking his official visit to Texas. And I'm sure that went well, and he spoke very, very highly of how that went. And obviously, he's been committed to them since last fall, since last November. So he's obviously got a great, great relationship with Texas and with the recruiting staff and with the staff as a whole down there, right? But the thing that really stood out to me, the thing that really stands out to me about Easton is I read this earlier this week in an article that was written by Glenn West. And Glenn West and Shay Dixon over at On3 and the Bengal Tiger, they do a great job with their LSU recruiting coverage, especially, but with their LSU coverage in general. But one of the things that Easton talked about when reading about kind of what he has said coming out of his visit to Austin this weekend, coming out of his visit to Texas, is he said Texas really tried to convince him and encourage him and show him that choosing Texas wasn't just a 4-year decision. It was a 50-year decision. It was a 50-year decision. When you talk about stuff like that, you're talking about legacy. You were talking about legacy and leaving a mark long after your college days are over. When we look at the history of LSU, when we look at the history of the Texas Longhorn football program, obviously, look, I'll be honest, Texas is one of the top programs in the country. They're one of the top programs in the country. They are a very, very good program. I think they have a chance at walking away with a national championship this year. I really, really do. And Arch Manning's second full season as a starting quarterback at Texas, I think they're one of the best programs in the country, and I think they have a chance to win a national championship this season. I really think they do. So I'm not trying to throw any shade at Texas. But when you look at historically, the amount of unbelievable elite level wide receiver talent that has come through LSU, that has come through Baton Rouge and gone on to do great things in the NFL, it is insane. I mean, we can go through the list. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Kayshon Boutte, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, even a little bit before my time, Michael Clayton, Josh Reed. Like that's just the tip of the iceberg. We could spend much, much more time going through the extensive list of great, unbelievable wide receiver talent that has come through this program, that has come through LSU. That's a legacy and a tradition that Easton Royal has a chance to be a part of, that he has a chance to be a part of. And I'm not saying that great receivers and great talent has not come through Texas. It has, but not to the level at the wide receiver position that it has at LSU. It hasn't. That list of receivers, great talent that has come through LSU at the receiver position is almost unmatched any other place in the country. Now, you do have Ohio State, you do have Alabama and programs like that. But when you look at Texas compared to LSU, the receiver talent at LSU that has come through Baton Rouge, it's just different. It's just different. That's why when Easton was in Austin on his Texas visit this weekend, his Texas official visit, you know who was there? Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle was there. Jalen Waddle's a great, talented wide receiver in the NFL. Jalen Waddle did not play college football at Texas. He did not play college football at Texas. He played at Alabama. That was where Jalen Waddle played college football. Now, obviously, he has a relationship with Steve Sarkisian because Steve Sarkisian was the Alabama offensive coordinator when Jalen Waddle played wide receiver at Alabama. But the point is that you had to go to another SEC school. You had to go grab a wide receiver from another SEC school to encourage Easton Royal to stick firm with his commitment to Texas. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. And again, I'm not trying to throw shade at Texas, but when you compare the history and the legacy at the wide receiver position that has come through Baton Rouge, that has come through LSU, it is just different. It's just different. LSU doesn't need to go to Alabama and grab Jalen Waddle to come on an official visit to encourage Easton Royal to stay committed because they have Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Kayshon Boutte, just to name a few, barely scratching the surface. That's a legacy that Easton Royal has the chance to become a part of and grow in and add upon. Not only that, but he's from the state. He's from New Orleans. He's from the state of Louisiana. And in this past, 20 to 25 year golden age run of LSU football, you've had great talent. You've had unbelievable talent. Most of that talent has come in this state. Most of that talent has been from the boot. The best talent in LSU football history, 80, 90% of it, it's been guys that have been from the boot. Louisiana gets a lot of things wrong. Louisiana gets a lot of things wrong, and there's a lot of things that we can be better at as a state. But this state cares about football. This state cares about football, and it deeply cares about LSU. LSU is the flagship program, the flagship college program in the state of Louisiana. In Texas, it's not just the Texas Longhorns. It's Texas, it's Texas Tech, it's Texas A&M, it's TCU, it's Baylor, it's Houston, it's all of these other Power 4 programs in the state of Texas as well, alongside Texas. LSU is the flagship. LSU is the flagship. It's the only one. It's the only one. From the top of the state to the bottom of the state, it is the one and only flagship Power 4 program in the state of Louisiana, a state that has a rich history in the sport of football and that deeply, deeply cares about football. And you've seen that with the talent that has come through this program from this state over the past 20 to 25 years. Easton Royal not only has a chance to be a part of the receiver greatness, the receiver legacy of all the great wide receivers that have come to this program, but also the guys from this state, the all-time LSU greats that have come from this state. That's a legacy that Easton Royal has a chance to be a part of and to add on to. And not only that, I've talked about it on the show a lot. It felt like for 4 years under Brian Kelly, LSU lost a little bit of their culture. A little bit of their identity was lost. It felt like LSU didn't feel like LSU is supposed to feel under Brian Kelly. You're bringing Lane Kiffin back, or you're bringing Lane Kiffin here. You're bringing Coach O back to reinvigorate the program and to bring LSU football back to where they're supposed to be. Easton Royal has a chance to be the face of that. One of the faces of that, of the resurgence of LSU football, of bringing LSU football back to national prominence and where they're supposed to be, one of the best programs in the country. And Easton Royal, the number one wide receiver in the country, the number one of the best players in the nation. But not only that, a guy from New Orleans, from the boot, from this state, has a chance to not only join a program that has a rich history and a rich legacy already, but leave a legacy and a mark of his own in the resurgence of LSU football that is to come over the next couple of years under Lane Kiffin. Easton Royal has a chance to be a massive, massive part of that. To me, that's the best pitch. To me, that's one of the best pitches out there. The legacy that has come through this program over the last 25 years, since the turn and the start of the 21st century, Easton Royal has a chance to join that and to grow in that and to leave his own legacy and to leave his own mark. So if you want to talk about leaving a legacy, if you want to talk about leaving a mark for years and years to come, even after you leave Baton Rouge, even after you leave college, even after you've gone off to the NFL, you do that in Baton Rouge. You stay at home and you do that at home. That's what you do. I'm not saying you couldn't do great things at Texas. I'm really not. Texas is a great program. They're a great program. But for a guy that's from this state to join a program that has a rich history in all-time LSU greats that have come through this state and all-time great wide receivers that have come through this program, Easton Royal has a chance to really, man, leave his own mark and leave his own legacy. And you do it at home, man. You do it in the purple and gold. And you do it for a state that loves their football and for a state where LSU is the flagship. There is no other. There is no other. It's not like Texas where you have 5 or 6 P4 schools competing for the top recruits in the state and in the country. No. Louisiana, LSU, it's home. And it's your chance to leave a mark and leave a lasting legacy for Easton Royal. And obviously, this is going to take a long process. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a while because he's obviously got a great relationship with Steve Sarkisian and the folks over there in Austin with the Texas Longhorns. But Lane Kiffin and company are going to do everything they can to try to pull this off. And not only that, not only for the top wide receiver in the country, but also Jalen Brewster. Also, Jalen Brewster, the number one, according to the Rivals industry rankings, the number one overall prospect in America, regardless of position, defensive lineman Jalen Brewster, who, like Royal, is committed to another Power 4 school in Texas. Jalen Brewster is committed to Texas Tech. He is, right? But Jalen Brewster, when he took his official visit to LSU a few weekends ago, was very, very impressed. Was very, very impressed. And one of the big things I think is, who was there? You know who was there when Jalen Brewster took his official visit to LSU around the beginning of June, around the start of June? Coach O was there. Coach O was there. That was really that was like the first weekend that Coach O got really involved in LSU recruiting after he got hired and brought on back as now the special assistant to recruiting and defense. That was really the first weekend where Coach O, went after it and really got really heavily involved. And we saw the videos and the pictures of Jalen Brewster with Easton Royal, of Coach O, who was one of the best defensive line coaches in the country when he was the coach of the sport for decades and decades and decades. The video of Coach O already teaching technique to the best defensive lineman in the country in Jalen Brewster. That had to have an effect. That had to have an effect. And it obviously did. Because while Jalen Brewster is committed to Texas Tech, AP, from my buddy from Timeouts and Tangents, Shay Dixon, other people pointed this out as well. But even while he's committed to Texas Tech, and a lot of the videos and photos that Jalen Brewster has been posting online over the past couple of weeks, he's wearing LSU gear. He's wearing LSU gear. LSU obviously made a big, big move and a big, big impact to where LSU has the best chance of any program, any school in the country of flipping Jalen Brewster from his commitment to Texas Tech. So not only are you going after the flip of Easton Royal, the best number one wide receiver in the country, but also you're going after the flip of Jalen Brewster, the number one overall prospect, regardless of position in America, according to Rivals. That's big. That's big time. And those two are going to take a while. It's going to take a while for Royal and Brewster because obviously, both of those guys, Royal has been committed to Texas since last November. Brewster has been committed to Texas Tech since I think last October. So they've obviously got great relationships with the staffs over there. Obviously, right? So I'm not saying this is going to be easy. But we've already seen in the month of June the phenomenal work that this recruiting staff, that this coaching staff has done in recruiting over the last 3 to 3.5 weeks. And they're not stopping anytime soon. So while the flips of Brewster and Royal are going to take some time, and you're going to need to be patient to see how these things play out. One of the other ones that Shay Dixon and some of the other guys have talked about this week, some of their recruiting intel, is LSU also has a really, really good chance of soon flipping 4-star safety Greedy James out of Texas. Greedy James, 4-star safety. He's currently committed to the Longhorns, but he took a visit to LSU, an official visit a few weeks ago, earlier in the month of June. Really, really impressed by that visit and a couple RPM picks, which are Rivals prediction machine picks by the likes of Shay Dixon and some of the other top recruiting analysts, recruiting officials in the country over at Rivals and On3, basically made predictions that LSU was eventually going to get the flip of Greedy James. So LSU is trending very, very soon to potentially get that flip. Now, he is rated as a 4-star safety prospect, Greedy James is, but if he comes over to play football, if he flips from Texas to LSU, he's likely going to wind up playing cornerback instead of safety. That's why Corey Raymond has been such a big part of this recruitment of Greedy James. So potentially, if you're able to land that, if you're able to flip James from Texas pretty soon, he would become the second defensive back commitment so far of this 2027 recruiting cycle for Corey Raymond. Obviously, three-star Marquez Davis out of the Opelousas committed to the Tigers a few weeks ago. But Greedy James is the guy that LSU trending to flip very, very soon, potentially. You also got to keep in mind over the next couple of weeks, Brandon Sherrard, another four-star defensive back that LSU is pursuing, along with Oklahoma and Texas as well. But definitely keep an eye on Greedy James. Has been the name that's come up a lot this week in a lot of the stuff that I've been reading and tuning into, as a guy that LSU expects to get a flip from pretty soon. And he would be the second defensive back that Corey Raymond would land for this 2027 recruiting cycle. But again, you've done a great job in the month of June. Done a great job. You picked up 10 commitments over the past 3.5 weeks, and those are two top 10 running backs, two top 10 edge rushers, multiple wide receivers, a couple of offensive linemen as well. And obviously, you're still working and doing stuff as well. But you've done a great job. You've done a great job so far in recruiting in the month of June. But it doesn't stop there, because you still got two big-time prospects in Easton Royal and Jalen Brewster that you're trying to flip. Those are guys that, if they do flip to LSU, are instant impact day one instant impact players for LSU. That's how good they are. That's how good Jalen Brewster and Easton Royal are. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. But this coaching staff has done a phenomenal job recruiting this past month, in the month of June. And it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. Now, 5-star offensive lineman Albert Simeon from the Lake Charles area is going to announce officially his commitment tomorrow. But it seems like, according to most sources, that Albert Simeon is going to either choose between Notre Dame or Texas A&M. Doesn't really seem like he's going to choose to commit to LSU. It seems like his decision is going to come down to Texas A&M or Notre Dame for the 5-star offensive lineman Simeon from the Lake Charles area. That's why you've seen, obviously, Eric Walford and LSU land commitments last week from three offensive linemen, actually, in Amazia Ciale, Terrence Smith, and then Isaiah Whitehead, the younger brother of Chris Whitehead, for the 2028 recruiting cycle. You're also seeing reports of LSU still pursuing Kelsey Adams, the 4-star offensive lineman who's currently committed to Georgia, but they're trying to flip him. You also had 4-star offensive lineman from the state of Georgia, Miller Westerfield, take an official visit to Baton Rouge this past weekend. So you've kind of moved away a little bit from Albert Simeon as he started to realize that his final decision is ultimately going to go down between Notre Dame and Texas A&M. The point is, guys, you've done a great job. You've done a great job, this coaching staff has, in recruiting over the last 3.5 weeks, over this month of June. Now, official visits are over for the offseason. You've hit the NCAA recruiting dead period. You're in the offseason now. You're in the thick of the offseason now. We are waiting for, SEC media days, followed shortly by fall camp, fall practice, followed shortly by September 5th, LSU and Clemson. September 5th in Death Valley to start the Lane Kiffin era, to officially begin the Lane Kiffin era. I could not be more excited. I could not be more hyped and more excited about that. You've done a great job in recruiting over the last month, but keep an eye on Jalen Brewster and keep an eye on Easton Royal, because, again, man, you want to talk about two guys that can leave a legacy here, leave a long-lasting impact here, and become pillars of this program, foundation, building blocks to build upon for the years to come. as Lane Kiffin revitalizes and brings this program back to where they belong, Jalen Brewster and Easton Royal, if they flip, have a chance to be the faces of that, or two of the main faces of that. You already saw clips and videos today of Peyton Houston, the four-star quarterback out of Evangel, who's already committed to LSU. He was throwing passes today to Easton Royal in the Nike camp that's taking place over in the state of Oregon right now. You already saw Peyton Houston throwing passes to Easton Royal, and if Easton Royal flips, you could see that more and more, that Houston to Royal combination for years and years to come. Definitely something to keep a close eye on. Definitely something to pay attention to. But again, I'll reiterate, if you're Easton Royal, man, and you want to make a choice and you want to make an impact and you want to leave a lasting legacy that lasts long beyond the end of your college days, you do that at Baton Rouge. You do that at home. You do that at a program that is on the rise, that Lane Kiffin is in the process of taking back to where they belong, and at a program that already has an established history and established legacy, not only in the wide receiver room, but with the all-time greats. So many of them, so many of the all-time LSU greats have come from this state, and Easton Royal has a chance to be the next one in line. And it's going to be interesting and fascinating to keep an eye on for the months and months to come. Let's get into the comments here. Let's go, Junior. Let's go, Randy. What are you doing, my friend? I hope you're doing well. I hope, how are you doing? Let me know in the comments below. Appreciate you, Randy, as always, for tuning in. Comparing LSU and Texas when it comes to wide receiver legacy, easily LSU, and it's not even close. Absolutely, Randy. Absolutely. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. Not saying Texas isn't a great program. Not saying, again, I think they could win a national championship this year. I honestly think they could. But when it comes to wide receiver legacy and wide receiver history, LSU's got them beat. LSU's got them beat. And one of one, Junior. Yeah, I mean, Easton Royal and Jalen Brewster as well, man, have a chance to really establish a legacy and really be building blocks for this program for years and years to come. All right, I wanted to get into a few more stories before we get out of here. Brian Kelly, BK. We already knew that Brian Kelly signed a deal to do some stuff, do some football coverage this upcoming fall with CBS Sports. But it was announced yesterday that Brian Kelly, former LSU head coach, will be color commentating Mountain West Conference football games for CBS Sports this fall during the 2026 season. He's also supposed to be involved with the CBS Sports weekday show Inside College Football. Man, this is a good thing for LSU, right? Like, this is a good thing for LSU because the more that Brian Kelly gets paid, the more he gets a job and gets paid by CBS Sports, the less LSU has to pay Brian Kelly in buyout money. LSU has to pay Brian Kelly $54 million. $54 million buyout. But Brian Kelly, the more he gets paid by CBS Sports and doing other jobs like this, the more it lets LSU off the hook. And it really helps LSU to kind of lessen the burden of that buyout. So it's good for LSU. But, I think it's kind of funny, the downfall of Brian Kelly. I really do, man. Like, when he came here, when he came here in 2022, he came here as one of the, winningest coaches in the country. Obviously, he had a great track record from, his time at Cincinnati and Notre Dame. But from the beginning, guys, it didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel authentic. It felt like Brian Kelly thought he was going to come down to Louisiana, going to come down to LSU, take the success and what he did at Cincinnati and what he did at Notre Dame and just apply it down here on the Bayou. And it didn't work that way. It didn't work out because, as Lane Kiffin says, LSU is just different. Louisiana is just different. And Brian Kelly never really understood that. And from the beginning, from being in the PMAC and doing the fake accent that everybody knew was fake and wasn't real and wasn't authentic, that should have told us from the jump that, oh no, that should have been our first warning shot, our first red flag, right? But ultimately, he comes here, he brings over his buddies, his own guys that, he's coached with before. He brings over his own guys like Brian Polian, and he lets guys like Blake Baker leave. He lets Corey Raymond leave and go to Florida for 2 years and basically brings in a defensive backs coach that was coaching high school football. You let the architect of DBU at LSU go to sign one of your guys, right? And then you realize 2 years after you started at LSU that you made such a big mistake there that you had to go back and re-sign Blake Baker, bring him back. You had to re-sign Corey Raymond and bring him back. And like I said, it just, to me, it never felt real. It never felt authentic. And it never felt like he really tried to respect, or tried to understand the culture and the state of Louisiana and LSU's football program and tap into it like Lane Kiffin is doing now. And LSU is set up for the future. You've done great things think about it. Since Lane Kiffin signed on in early December, since he became the new head coach and the new leader of this football program, you do great things with your high school signing class in December, especially on the defensive line. Richard Anderson, Lamar Brown, Deuce Geralds, Trenton Henderson. Then you sign 40-plus transfer portal prospects in January, one of, if not the best portal hauls in the country in January, including 3 top 5 portal prospects in the nation, in Sam Levitt, in Jordan Seaton, and Prince Will Uman-Mielen. And now what you're doing in the recruiting class with some of the 5 stars you've already brought in, like an Ahmad Hudson. You got Peyton Houston, the 4-star quarterback of the future from Evangel. I mean, and what you've done in the month of June, man, picking up 10 commitments, including 2 top 10 running backs, 2 top 10 edge rushers, multiple receivers, multiple offensive linemen as well. Great stuff. But man, you're 2.5 months out from the start of it. Like all of the offseason stuff, all of the recruiting stuff, all of the expectations and anticipation that is going to be building, it all comes to a head in September. It all starts in September. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait, man. I really can't. There's high expectations for this team in year one. You spent $40 million on this roster, guys. You spent $40 million on this roster. So, heck yeah, there's high expectations for this team to potentially make the college football playoff in year one under Lane Kiffin. And not only that, not only from many outlets, but I wanted to talk about this for a second because it's fun to me. Because if you don't know a lot about me, I love sports. I love God. Faith is the biggest part of my life. That's the most important part of my life, is my faith in Christ. Behind that, it's not nearly as important, but behind my faith is sports and my love for athletics, my love for sports, my love for LSU. But I'm also, in my free time, one of my biggest hobbies outside of watching sports is, it's fun to turn on video games like college football. EA CFB 27 coming out in a couple of weeks. Really excited about it. And they've been releasing some ratings, some overall team ratings over the past week. LSU, according to EA CFB 27, the best college football, the only college football video game out there. LSU is an 88 overall team, according to CFB 27. That is tied for the 6th highest overall rating of any team in the game. LSU has an 89 overall rating on offense, an 87 overall rating on defense. That 89 overall rating on offense is tied for the 6th highest in the game. Individually, Trey Green is the highest rated, the best tight end in the game at a 92 overall. Sam Levitt, LSU starting quarterback Sam Levitt, has a 90 overall rating in the game. That is tied for 8th best of any quarterback in the game. Jordan Seaton, the star left tackle, is rated as a top 5 left tackle in the game at a 93 overall. Whit Weeks is also a top 10 rated linebacker in the game at a 90 overall. Something that interests me. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to go through these ratings, but it's like this is another, so many outlets, whether it's video games, whether it's national media news outlets or whatever it is, right? There's high expectations. There's extremely high expectations coming into the season. I can't wait for it, man. I can't wait for it. There were a few things that stood out to me, though. I felt like DJ Pickett wasn't one of the top 10 defensive backs in the game. Principal Monmielen wasn't one of the top 10 edge rushers, and Todd Benefield wasn't a top 10 safety. So those are 3 guys that I kind of understand it maybe a little bit. But like DJ Pickett was maybe the best freshman in the country, in America last year. Principal Monmielen was like one of the leaders in the SEC in sacks. I think he was top 3, top 5 in the SEC in sacks last year. And then Todd Benefield, I get it. He comes from a G5 school over at Boise State. But it really sounds like Todd Benefield is going to be very, very good. Todd Benefield's a stud. He's an absolute stud. Cannot wait to see him and this team take the football field in September. It's going to be really fun, man. It's going to be a wild ride. But we've entered the off season now. Recruiting dead period has reached. Official visits are over. Obviously, in July, we'll have, the MLB draft and how that impacts LSU baseball's roster. I want to say this because I'm finding it odd with the LSU baseball content that I post, the LSU baseball content that I put out there. Like I put something out there. I think I put a clip out there yesterday talking about Jake Brown. And if he comes back to LSU, go ahead and buy the Omaha tickets, which I talked about on the show Tuesday. But there's still some sentiment and some doubting of this coaching staff. It's obviously there. It's there. And particularly of this pitching staff, this coaching staff on the pitching side of things from Nate Yeskie and Jamie Tutko. I want to say this. I understand 2026 was a bad baseball season. I really, really do. But I'm getting sick and tired, man, of this talk about this coaching staff. Because the same coaching staff that everybody wants to talk so bad about with how they performed in 2026 is the same staff that was holding up a national championship last year in 2025. It's the same coaching staff, guys. Look at what Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson are doing in the minor leagues right now. They're dominating. Look at what Gage Jump is doing with the A's. He's doing great things. He's doing great. Those are guys that Nate Yeskie, Jamie Tutko, and Jay Johnson coached. They coached them. Like from LSU, from under, go to Nate Yeskie and Jamie Tutko and Jay Johnson. The same staff that people want to sit up there and criticize for one bad season, is the same staff that was holding up a national championship in 2025 that coached Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson and Gage Jump. And it's the same staff that I believe is going to take this program and this team back to Omaha in 2027. And you know what? The critics and the doubters and the people who clearly suffer from it's like, excuse me, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it's like people suffer from memory loss or something. Because it's the same staff that coached the team in 2025 to a national championship. Yes, They had a bad season this year, and for a lot of reasons, even some reasons outside of baseball, even if you want to talk about all the injuries, and I'm not saying the injuries were the only reason this team wasn't good this year. I'm not saying that because I don't think that, but that's a part of it. That's a part of it. So my question is to you, to all of you, let's just enjoy this offseason, man. They've done great things in the portal. They're dominating the portal right now. They really, really are. I mean, Bino Waters, Jason Wax, Dawson Park, Cade Kurland. I mean, Landon Hood, Diego Velasquez. Like, they're doing great stuff in the portal right now, and I don't think they're done. It doesn't look like they're done. Potentially, I know my guys from Go Deep Dive, David and Zach, they posted this earlier today. But from what they've been hearing a little bit is that Alec Blair from Oklahoma is potentially trending towards LSU. He entered the transfer portal. He was a two-sport athlete at Oklahoma. I believe he played guard for Oklahoma men's basketball team, and he was a right fielder for their baseball team that walked away with the national championship this past Monday. Again, I want to give credit to the guys that Go Deep Dive for posting that earlier today. Again, none of that is official, but they've obviously been hearing stuff. And obviously, if you're not tuning in to David Billiard and Zach Nunez and those guys over there, they do great work. And you definitely should be. But my point is, guys, is this coaching staff has done a great job this offseason of assembling this roster for 2027. And yes, 2026 was bad. But again, I'll reiterate it once again. The same coaching staff that people want to get on for what happened in 2026 is the same exact coaching staff. The same one that was holding up a national championship in June of 2025. Give them a little bit of time. Give them a little bit of grace. I think they've earned that. And I think LSU is going to be back where they belong and where they need to be at the top of the sport in 2027. And I cannot wait for that. But in the meantime, man, I can't wait for LSU. I can't wait for football season. I really can't. It's going to be absolutely awesome, absolutely insane. The anticipation and the expectation is going to build and culminate on September 5th when Clemson heads to Baton Rouge to play LSU on Saturday night in Death Valley, 6:30 p.m. kickoff on ABC. Cannot wait for it. But that's pretty much all I have on the show for you guys today. I do have a little bit of a programming announcement regarding the show next week. We won't have a show tomorrow, and next week I'll be out of town for most of the week next week. I'll actually be serving at a volunteering at a camp that my church does every year. I'm really excited to kind of get away for a couple days, so I won't be in town for most of the week next week. Don't really plan to go live at all next week. I'm really looking forward to it, man. Just kind of an opportunity to unplug. And I've shared this a little bit. Like, my faith is very important to me. Like, my faith and my trust in Christ and what he's done, and just my Savior and what he's done, man. And it's very important to me, and it's the most important thing in my life. And if you ever have any of you watching ever have any desire to talk about that more, just let me know. I'm obviously open to it. But it's very important to me, and I'm very honored and thrilled to just get away for a couple days, for 5-6 days, and just kind of unplug and focus on what really matters most to me. So don't really plan to do much in terms of the show next week. We'll be back. Of course, we'll be back probably the Monday after July 4th, which is Monday, July 6th. I know it's kind of a long time off, but I want to give myself that time to kind of unplug, kind of decompress, and really just focus on what matters to me the most. And that ultimately is my faith in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I want you all to remember, as always, that God loves you. He wants a relationship. He desires a relationship with you. Jesus loves you. And yeah, I just thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, remember, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed. You can also follow us on X, on Facebook, on TikTok as well. Subscribe to us on YouTube. But I thank you guys as always for tuning in. Have a great weekend. And as always, God bless. Go Tigers. Love God. Love people. Babin on the Bayou.